right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 16th, 2025 City Council Board meeting.
Chair Lexington, microphone.
Try it again. Good morning, everybody.
Good
Well,
morning.
Good morning. There you go. I'm good, thank you. Alrighty, John, this is great. Welcome to the January 16th, 2025 SACOG Board meeting. Thank you for being here. We're gonna get started. I would like to ask Senator Ashby if she could lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you for the honor. Please join me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. Good morning. I'll take roll, but before I do so, for our new board members, welcome, and our alternates attending today, we appreciate you for being here. To use the microphone, you just need to push the button when it lights green. That means that your voice is being amplified and carried over into our online streaming. Director Andreatta,
Here.
Baines,
Present.
Boomgarden,
Here.
Bradford,
Here.
Rollins for Branscombe,
Here.
Houlihan,
Here.
Chapdelaine,
Here.
Chapman,
Here.
Clark Kretz, here, Clarici,
Here.
Desmond. Thank you. Dowden Calvillo,
The outer.
absent. Gallardo,
Here.
Early,
Here.
Howdeschelt,
Here asking for seat reassignment forms.
we'll talk after the meeting, you bet. Director Hume, Jennings,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Kozlowski,
Here, South Wing.
Director Lauren,
Here in the good seats.
Maple,
Here.
McCully,
Here.
Sander,
Go Irish.
Schaefer,
Here.
Teeter, Vega, absent Veerkamp, Villegas,
Here.
Vice Chair Soon,
Here.
excuse me, Chair
Oh,
Alex.
no, here.
Thank
I
you.
did.
And ex officio member Aceves, absent.
Sue Tucker
Oh,
here
Sue
for
Tucker.
Aceves.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You know, we need to start this off with a little bit somber note, but I think it's important, you know, we all have our personal lives outside of this. And I just want to acknowledge Mayor Branscombe had a sudden tragedy in his life. He lost his second son. So we want to, I just want to acknowledge that, and I hope our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family during this very difficult time. And we really miss him, and thank you for being here, Dr. Rollins. With that, I'll
Chair
move on.
Lexington, and we're
Yeah,
we're
thank you.
trying to get a card for you all, so that will be circulated. So just when you see the card, if you can just say something and we'll get it to him.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Gene. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to introduce our special guest speakers. They have a very busy schedule. That's why we asked them to be at this part of the agenda. We're very honored to have Senator Nilo and Senator Ashby here. At this moment, I'd like to invite Senator Roger Nilo to come to the podium and say a few words. Thank you, Senator. Good morning.
To what do I owe the honor of being first? Thank you. First of all, welcome to the new board members here. I think there's 9 of them. And if I understand correctly, Mayor, are you mayor this year, Gallardo?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't be
Mayor of
afraid. Don't be
Rockland,
afraid by
city
that.
in my district you're going to become a chair. So
I'll be serving as vice chair, hopefully.
As vice chair.
With this fine gentleman that will be leading the path.
first of all, I have to get my facts straight
That's
and then distort them any way I please. But I want to stress this is a very important forum. I served on the SACOG board for most of the time that I was on the Board of Supervisors about 100 years ago. The focus of this group, of course, is transportation planning and land use. Most of my activity in regional collaboration has been in really economic development. But the two activities are very closely related and frankly dependent upon each other. A strong economy generates the resources to pay for the sorts of things that this body does. And I often use an old environmental saying to act locally, think regionally, and compete globally. Because we have a lot of different communities in this region. Yuba City is quite different from downtown Sacramento, as Rockland is different from Placerville. And we all have our individual interests, but the fact of the matter is positive developments in any community benefits other communities. And when I was visiting all the jurisdictions with Barry Broom when the Greater Sacramento Economic Council was getting going, I was stressing to communities that your most powerful strength is not your community, it's the community next to you. Because when we work together, we all benefit by that. We compete globally, not with each other. And too often in the past, I have noticed that some of us think that we're competing against each other, Rancho Cordova against Folsom for employers. But the fact of the matter is any quality employer in Folsom benefits citizens of Sacramento or Roseville with quality job opportunities. So what you do here, the relationships that you develop to work together, even though the communities are quite different for the benefit of the whole region, is vital for the Sacramento region. So I thank you for what you do. And I miss being here myself, but I've gone on to other things with Senator Ashby, who will speak to you next.
Thank you, Senator Nilo. I'd like to invite Senator Ashby to join us at the podium, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. It's a SACOG morning. It's been a while since I was in this room for a SACOG morning, but I too have fond memories of serving on this board. You look a little different than the last time I saw you when there were 3 women and they were all named Susan. So I am happy to see that.
Yeah.
That's actually a true story.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it's also true. I want to tell you that my favorite thing about this board and also serving on library board or boards like that is getting to meet people from other cities and counties. It's really fun and helpful and useful. I started to care so much about things happening in West Sac or things happening in Elk Grove when my duty was Natomas because of SACOG, and I would find myself fighting for it. And I think ultimately for me, that was a big part of how I ended up doing something different. And this board was definitely a catalyst for at least part of how I envisioned the region. It's incredible to be a senator and have a group like you so organized. Yes, there are COGs across the state. They don't all work like this. They don't all come together like this. And it is a real point of pride for Senator Nilo and myself. We can kind of flex on our colleagues and say, yeah, well, our folks are working together. Right? From Roseville and Rockland out to Elk Grove and Yuba City and everything in between. Yeah, they are working together. Doesn't mean you have to agree every time, but we are able to get you more resources when you present us with a plan that we can defend. And you have done that consistently over and over. I am particularly excited today that you are welcoming Katie Maple from the city of Sacramento. I know it is her first day. I know that Councilmember Rick Jennings will help her find her way quickly, but get ready for a boost of energy and a lot of positivity and a person who loves this region deeply. So I'm excited for her trajectory here on this board and grateful for how much time Rick Jennings has put in on this board. What a wonderful person he is for this region as well. Grateful to be your senator. And then I want to end on one note, and that is this. Don't have this be the last time, even in the near future, that you come and talk to Senator Nilo and myself. Invite us to come listen to you, because the best thing we can do is listen. So if you invite us to some of your subcommittees or a small listening session and you identify for us some priorities, we can really go back and work on those. The other great benefit to this region is having people from both parties still does matter in California. Don't let yourself believe it doesn't. For example, I am in leadership and I do sit on a really important committee, but you know what I don't serve on? Budget. But do you know who does? Senator Nilo, and he has a leadership role. He's vice chair of the budget committee. So we can work together in that regard. I can push something through where it needs Democratic help and votes and leadership, but he can be in the room to make sure it actually got on the list. So make sure we know what's important to you. Make sure that you're talking to us. Reach out. We'll come back. We will come back and we will listen, and then we'll go back in that building and fight for you. All of you. That's an open invitation. All right? Mr. Soon, I know you're going to be a great chairman of this organization. You are so good at this part, and everyone is going to love having you there. You're going to have your big shoes to fill next year coming out of Rockland, but I know you guys are set up for wonderful leadership for a long period of time here, and I'm looking forward to being your partner.
Thank you so much, Senator. Thank you, Senator Ashby, and thank you, Senator Nilo. Now you know you went first. You have a say in the money, so we would definitely appreciate both your service, both locally and representing us at this region at the state level. Go do your great work at the Capitol. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move on to our next presentation, which is going to be the swearing in of the chair and vice chair, who I neglected myself. I'm fulfilling a vice chair role for our new members. Our chair, Saragosa, was not able to continue on in this capacity, so I'm filling in up until this very moment. I think, James, are you swearing us in? Should I meet you at the podium? Okay, thank you.
Do one at a time or together?
I think they wanted this one.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, official.
I'm still yet to figure out why I do the swearing in, but I'm glad I'm here, and here we go. So repeat after me. I, Darren Soon,
I, Darren Soon,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or
Without-
purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I invite Vice Chair Galdo to join us. I know.
Vice Chair-elect, repeat after me. I, Jill Gallardo,
I, Jill Gallardo,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
including Ohio State.
Absolutely.
I don't
I love it.
I don't know who put that in there. that I will bear truth, faith, and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Go Irish.
Vice Chair Gallagher, while you're up there, since you have the microphone, I'd just like to invite you, if you'd like to say any remarks.
Thank you. It's a different view from back here. I tell you that. I am so appreciative and grateful, and thank you for the trust. I am beyond excited for the team. I really feel like I'm going to spend that time sitting there watching and learning as I have from the others. But this is, and I loved hearing what Senator Ashby talked about. When I'm at the airport and I hear Rich Desmond's voice come across to welcome me in, I literally introduced one of our concert series. I said, okay, if you go to the airport, you might hear him, but I've got Corey Park. We're here for a concert. It's just, but I feel like such a connection now as we're going out and visiting, and I've learned so much. So thank you so much for the confidence, and I will do absolutely the best job that I can, and I know we'll be a fabulous team. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Honored to have you as my co-pilot, Vice Chair. And also for me, I just again want to thank all my colleagues for their faith and support in this effort as well. I'm very humbled and honored to also be serving in this role. And honestly, to be serving with all of you. We've had all through the years, we've talked about a lot of different issues. We've for lack of a better term, gently fought over funding for our respective communities, but we've also, to quote Director Jennings, we've also been a learning board. We've gone and visited each other's communities and learned, Senator Neela talked about the differences, but we found a lot of things that we had in common and appreciated the different flavors of our respective communities. So I look forward to taking that, continuing that spirit as we talk about a lot of complex but very interesting topics and benefiting our region as a whole as we go to the Capitol, as we go to DC in a united front. I want to move on here and just officially welcome some of our newest members to the board. We have Holly Andriotta, the city of Lincoln. Where did Holly go? Jeremy Chapdelaine of City of Live Oak. Jan Clark Kretz, our former colleague, Town of Loomis, returning board member. Yeah. And another returning former board member, John Clarici from the City of Placerville. As mentioned earlier, Katie Maple, City of Sacramento. Yeah. Yes. And finally, another returning board member and former chair, Brian Veerkamp, County of El Dorado. I should have said and for this part. Also, another good friend who's newly officially on the board, Dante Early West from West Sacramento. We're still waiting for a few appointments from Galt, Yuba City, and Sacramento County. So we'll see who gets appointed to those spots to fill the remaining spots. I also want to publicly thank City of Sacramento Councilmember Maya Vang for her service to the board as well. We'll be getting actually a service plaque to her, right, James? Sure. Yes. Mark Bloomgarden from the City of City. Oh, I apologize. Yes, Mark Bloomgarden. Yes.
I'm not official yet. Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Okay. All right. Very good. Nice to meet you officially, sir. All right. Okay. Oh, committee assignments for 2025. I think all of you should have gotten them this morning. If you have any questions or concerns about your assignments, please reach out to me, Lynette, the clerk of the board. They'll also be posted on our website as well.
Chair Sum, can I just also, to round out your roll call, welcome Marysville City Council Member Marjorie Rollins. So Brantley, newly elected, right? serving as the alternate in Director Branscom's absence, but I just wanted to say a warm welcome from all of us.
Yes, thank you, James. Yeah. Okay, there's also a form in front of you to indicate your interest in several board events this year. So please keep them and either hand it to Lynette at the end of the meeting or send to her via email. One of the opportunities you'll see on there is what we're calling inclusive leadership training, conducted by a great group that many of you are familiar with, the American Leadership Forum. I think a lot of us have gone through that program already, so it won't be anything new to you. I encourage all the board members to try to attend that and find a opportunity. I think it's going to dovetail nicely with our work that we're going to do this year. Speaking of which, there's a lot of great stuff going on this year. We have the adoption of the 2025 blueprint. I know some of our new members may or may not be familiar with that, but you'll soon learn about it. That's our long-range plan for transportation funding and implements a new framework that this board worked very hard on the last 2 years to try to secure more funding for things like Green Means Go. Again, something that many of you will learn about later. And we're going to take this work to the state legislature, as well as trying to update our transportation and climate laws, including SB 375. I won't get into all that detail right now, but fair enough to say, I think SB 375 is an issue for a lot of COGs throughout the state. And this COG is going to be looking to be one of the leaders in trying to make some changes that will make that legislation more efficient for all our communities. There will be much more also that Casey Lazon will be talking about later in this meeting. All right, I'm going to move on next to public communications. So this is the time for anyone who'd like to speak on items not on the agenda to come forward. I know I have one speaker card here, but if there's any others, anyone else would like to speak, please hand your slips to Board Clerk Lynette up here. Our first speaker is Jeffrey Tartagia. Good morning, Jeffrey. Happy New Year. Okay.
Good morning, board. Quite a representation. I remember many years ago, much smaller and much less, inviting. I've appreciated, you not only the public, but also getting it on YouTube so that other people can see what is happening and what is going on in the region. I still have to work with James about the pass-through and the understanding of how certain things are funded and directed. But I also encourage each one of you, who do you tell in the public about what you are doing? I find that there is a disconnect a little bit of you have the information, where does the information get and how it gets to the public? And that's my public comment here today. One of the reasons you will often see me using YouTube and not being like here is because I also attend a legislative meeting for California Alliance of Retired Americans, which is statewide, and it's got about 1 million. And this year, with the change of executive director and other changes going on, it is becoming one that having to focus on more federal levels than ever before. We have an interesting year ahead, and I don't know how many heard yesterday's Biden's farewell comments or not, but interesting to hear some of the changes that are happening and going on in our world, but locally, what we can do and what we can help each other. Appreciate seeing the conversation and dialogue that is going on. So I will always try to listen, and I will try to be a comment or two of what I don't see. And I will keep asking for you to do things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. All right, well, there is a special board meeting agenda item, so we're going to go ahead and adjourn the regular meeting of SACOG and call to order the special board meeting. Madam Clerk, can you notice any changes to our roll call?
Thank you, Chairson. We'll add for the record to our roll call that Director Vega and Dowden Calvia are here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public communications for the special board meeting?
There's no public communications for the special meeting.
All right. Are there any directors who need to disclose a conflict with any of the items on the special board meeting? We only have one, actually. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to say the action item is appointment to the Delta Protection Commission. And Mr. Corliss, I think you're going to present this one.
Yeah, Chair Stone and members of the board. So by state statute, SACOG has an appointment to the Delta Protection Commission. Certainly happy to get into more detail about that. Our appointment has been over the past, I believe it's been 4 years, was Paul Steele, who served as a city council member for the city of Ileton. Paul Steele is no longer in office, and so that appointment became vacant. I've been working with Chair Soon and also the DPC itself. And so you have two related actions in front of you this morning. One is to represent David Kent, to appoint David Kent, City of Ileton, to the Delta Protection Commission for that seat. And the second is to delegate authority for future appointments to the chair. You're certainly welcome to discuss that. It's a little unclear whether this board has to take an action, but we wanted to bring it to you all this morning to just discuss and formally approve. The chair typically has those appointments as you're seeing in front of you. If you'd prefer to keep this at the full board, it's totally at your pleasure. But so two actions. One is David Kent as the appointment, and the second is a delegation of the appointments in the future to the chair of the SACOG board, whoever that may be.
All right, here's a couple questions. Yeah, Director Hume.
If there aren't any questions, I would make a motion covering both actions.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
I have a question over here, Director Haldeshot.
yeah. Mr. Corliss, I heard something that I thought was unique, and I'll ask the maker of the motion, Supervisor Hume. Were you appointed by the SACOG board to the Delta Protection Commission? So I heard you say that we are appointing the Ileton representative to the Delta Protection Commission. Did I misunderstand?
No, that's the appointment. Maybe I'll get Eric to talk a little bit about what statute says, and we have to appoint somebody within one of the Delta zones. And so Eric, if you can explain.
Yeah, so in short, the statute, when it was approved many years back with the Delta Protection Commission specific to SACOG, when it was created under state law, it stated that the Council of Governments representing the cities and counties of Sacramento County would have a city council member from either Sacramento or Yolo County be the appointee. So we do not appoint other members of the DPC. The statute outlines how the rest of the DPC board is structured. It's just we get one seat on the board and it's up to us to appoint.
If I might, a city council member,
A
not a
It cannot
board
be a
of
county.
supervisor or.
That's correct. It has to be a city council member from just those two counties.
The mission of the Delta Protection Commission is largely different than our mission here. And so I understand statute. I
Yeah.
looked at their past agendas and things like that. I don't think we get into voting, do we? No. Ecosystem, but I will support the motion, but I just want it to be noted that it's a little different than the purpose of SACOG, so.
Mr. Howdeshell, if I could just maybe give a little bit of like context, right? When this was being developed, it was around the time that the sustainable community strategy was being established, right? And so were there questions about land use and development relative to the ecological region of the Delta? And so I think the compromise when SB 375 was passed, if I recall correctly, is that it allowed for adding a seat so that we had some voice. The jurisdictions had some voice, not SACOG specifically, but it related in some ways to the SCS.
I appreciate that, and as I said, I'll support the motion, but I just wanted to note that it is a little different.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Sac County and or Yolo County, I'm just curious because we're going to Ileton and then Ileton again. Is there a process or did they just talk to SACOG staff? How did we decide on that?
Well, I will say, I talked to Chair-elect Soon. We've had an Ileton representative in the past, and so I think we talked about who from Ileton in this case would be appropriate. We went through a few names. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so, yeah, there was some investigation, if you call it, on my part, talking to Supervisor Villegas, Supervisor Hume, who both represent Sacramento and Yolo on that Protection Commission, and who else might like to serve, as well as Director Boulahan from Ileton herself. So those individuals I consulted, and we went through some folks, and some folks weren't able to attend, and for various reasons, or no desire to represent. So this is how we ended up. But yeah, I went through an investigative process of areas that I thought were pertinent to that spot, right? And so this is what I settled on to nominate Director Kim.
So I don't have a problem with the nomination. I was just fascinated, again, as a city council member coming from Yolo County, I was not aware that these conversations were happening. And so would be curious if, whether it be Davis or Winters, how that's going about just in the future, as we're going to once again go Ileton again,
Yeah, I
which
think,
is Sac County. Love me some Sac County. Just fascinated.
I want to defer to Supervisor Vegas.
Yeah, I think in part, as it kind of whittles itself down, the intent and the purpose behind the appointment is largely, and this is getting technical, but it's finding somebody in the primary zone of the Delta. There's a lot of history behind primary and secondary zones that are further out. Obviously, other parts of Yolo County really wouldn't qualify in either case. Ileton is squarely at the center of the primary zone of the Delta, especially in light of all the issues that are occurring as it relates to the water policy issues of the administration. So I think, as Darren said, kind of whittling it down to try to find somebody that could actually represent an area that is right squarely in the center of the biggest water policy conversations probably in our recent history. So
That's helpful. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? Did you have a correct? Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for both the questions clarified, because it was new to me too. And then Director Early West about how we went about it. And it'll be beyond me, right? But the next chair, they'll be their prerogative. It is a unique place, very isolated. And so, yeah, I hope future chairs will also do their best to, reach out and see, who might be the best candidate to fill that spot. So with that, I heard a motion from Director Hume, and I believe a second from Director Vegas. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, now we'll go ahead and adjourn from the special board meeting and reconvene as SACOG Board of Directors. Lynette, or excuse me, I would ask if any directors have any conflict on items on the regular board agenda.
And Chair, if I can just explain real quickly, Mike Mauer, General Counsel to SACOG.
Yeah.
This is an item we added to our agenda recently just to help the board as a reminder to identify any conflict of interest that you might have. Here at SACOG, the same conflict of interest rules apply that apply to your city or county. And so if you do have any sort of a Political Reform Act, Section 1090 conflict, we've put this here just a reminder to check the agenda and see if there's anything on there that might give rise to that conflict, and then bring it up now. That way we can make sure you recuse before we start discussing that item. The one thing I'll highlight is part of the reason we added this is, as many of you know, the rules around the Levine Act changed last year. That act has actually always applied to SACOG, but there's much more of a highlight on it more recently. With new legislation, it increased the threshold to $500, but that act applies to any campaign contributions to any of you, regardless of what seat you are running in. That's greater than $500 within the past 12 months. It applies to contracts, permits, or entitlements. So in particular for SACOG, what we really ask you to look out for is if there's any contract approvals on the agenda, just double check and make sure that it's not someone who gave you a donation above that threshold within the last year. Given that many of you are newly elected, it's a relevant reminder at this time. So with that, Chair, back to you. We'll see if anyone has disclosures, but I want to be clear as to why we have it on the agenda.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much, because I mean, obviously this is the only thing we have is approval of the agenda, but I'm coming back to the consent calendar. approval of minutes is the only thing on here. I wanted to see if anyone would like to remove this item for discussion. And if not, are there anyone from the public who'd like to make comments on that?
There's no public comment on consent.
Okay, and is there any motion to approve it?
Move.
Approval of the minutes?
Okay,
Second by
thank you.
Baines.
All right, second by Baines. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, first, our action item, agenda 2, on the public hearing, unmet transit needs in Sacramento, Sutter, the Yolo and Yuba counties and cities therein. Barbara von Bechtold is presenting. Barbara, would you like to provide any remarks?
Just really briefly, especially for our new board members, or maybe some of you haven't been with us for a while. The State Transportation Development Act, or TDA, requires SACOG as the 4-county regional transportation planning agency for Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba counties to make annual unmet transit needs findings for the Sacramento Regional Transit District and all of the jurisdictions within that 4-county area who are eligible to use TDA funds. A similar process is conducted in El Dorado County and Placer County. SACOG must hold a final public hearing before the board prior to the unmet transit needs findings applying to the coming fiscal year. So that would be 25-26 being finalized. So the final public hearing, we're holding it today, and we'll bring the recommended findings to the board next month in February, so that if we get any new comments today that we haven't already heard before, we have time to analyze those before we bring those findings back to you. So with that, I'd like to ask that you open the final public hearing for unmet transit needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions before I do so? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing and take any comments. Madam Clerk, or does anybody want to comment on this item?
There is a public comment there at your seat from Jeffrey Tartagia on this public hearing.
Oh, this one says 3.
There's a white, should be a white slip. Yes.
This was the original one. Welcome back, Jeffrey Tartagia.
Jeff Tartagia, an advocate. Reminder of dealing with the unmet needs. I remember some years ago where the Delta area was brought before, and it was a few times that in Sacramento we had something like this come before this board. Unfortunately, that community and you say public transportation seems to be indeed a unmet need and continually needing to be worked on. There's other needs, and hopefully you will be able to look at those a little bit differently and see what in the future would be helpful. You've done some deep diving fairly recently in the last few years. I would encourage more of that to happen, to identify both unmet needs and the way other things are coming together in this manner. That's my public comment.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Lynette, are there any other comments from the public?
There's no other comments for the public hearing.
Okay, seeing none, I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. That's all the action is needed at this time, and move on to the next item, agenda item 3, review and accept the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual comprehensive financial report and transit funds audit reports. Loretta Sue is presenting. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Board. Loretta Sue, SACOG Finance Director. SACOG, as a federally designated metropolitan planning organizations, also known as MPO, receive federal funds for planning and transportation activities. It's required to perform an annual financial and single audits. And also SACOG is designated as the Regional Transportation Planning Agency to administering the Transportation Development Act program, as Barbara mentioned earlier, for the 4 counties, is required to perform the annual fiscal audits of the transit funds. The purpose of these audits are to ensure SACOG has proper internal control in place to protect its asset from loss or misuse, and also to ensure that the financial statements are accurate and complete. 2 independent financial audit firms, I-Bailey and Richardson and Company, have completed the audit of SACOG financial statement and the transit funds. And they have issued a annual financial comprehensive report, also known as ACFR, and the transit funds audit reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Staff is pleased to report that SACOG received an unmodified or clean opinion for both audits. As such, staff is recommending that the board review and approve the annual comprehensive financial report and the transit funds audit reports for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Attached to the staff reports are the annual comprehensive financial report and a report to the board requirement communications, and also the transit funds audit report. Attachment A is the ACFR, which includes the financials information for SACOG Planning and Administration Fund, which includes the overall work program activities, board and advocacy activities, the managed fund activities, and also any special funds activities such as the transit funds. The ACFR is about 140 pages long, so it might be quite lengthy. So, but it's broken into 4 different sections, which include the introductory section, including a summary of SACOG profile, and then also some short-term and long-term planning, and then also any major initiative or accomplishment for the fiscal year. The financial section, which started on page A1, this section includes the independent auditor report from I. that discussed their responsibility as an auditor and also the result of their audits. And then also a summary of the positions and activities and comparison of SACOG Financial to the prior year. Ms. Carly Ransom will go over a little bit more about their audit process and result shortly. And the the third section is the statistical section, which started on B1. This section includes various unaudited demographic of SACOG region and also historical financial information of SACOG. And lastly is the single audit section. This section starts on page C1. The single audit is required for any agency such as SACOG that receive federal funds in more than 750,000, and it's including the audit reports of the audit of the program expenditures and finding. Again, staff is pleased to report that there were no findings to any of the single audit programs. As I noted earlier, attachment B is the required communications to the board regarding the SACOG financial audit, which address any audit findings, difficulties encountered in performing the audit, corrected and uncorrected misstatements, and any disagreement with management if there is any. And then attachment C through attachment E are the various transit reports and communication letter to the board. Richardson and Company conducted the audit of the transit funds, and this includes the local transportation funds for the 4 counties, Sacramento, Sutter, Yola, and Yuba, and also SACOG State Transit Fund, and then also the State of Good Repair Fund audit. These reports are part of the SACOG Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Carly Ransom. She is the Senior Audit Manager from I. Bailey to give an overview of the audit, their audit process, and the result of the audits, and then to answer any questions.
Good morning. As Loretta mentioned, my name is Carly Ransom. I'm with Eide Bailey LLP. We are a national accounting and auditing firm with a local office here in Sacramento. I'm happy to be here today to go over our audit results for the audits that we performed for the year ending June 30th, 2024. So we were engaged by SACOG as independent auditors to perform an audit over the financial statements for fiscal year 24. The team that worked on this audit is from our local governments division here in Sacramento, and this team works on audits of local governments full-time. The audit was conducted in multiple phases, starting in July and August 2023 and ending in December 2023 with the issuance of our reports. So for our audits, you could essentially segment them into 2 interrelated parts. First, we're doing an audit of the financial statements of SACOG. giving an opinion on the financial statements as to whether or not they're materially fairly stated. And second, we're performing a compliance audit over federal expenditures and federal programs that are administered by SACOG. As Loretta mentioned, if an entity has over 750,000 in federal expenditures for a year, that entity is required to undergo a compliance audit over those federal funding. So SACOG historically will reach that threshold every year and have this compliance audit. So management of SACOG is responsible for the preparation of the financial statements, and then our responsibility as auditors is to perform testing and gather audit evidence in order to support our opinion on whether or not the financial statements are materially fairly presented. So this testing includes reviewing financial transactions, confirming account balances, we evaluate internal controls, and we also test compliance with relevant laws and regulations. So at the conclusion of the audit, we provide our audit report, which gets included in SACOG's financial statements, which is attachment A, I believe, to this board item. And our audit report is included on page A3 on the financial statements. The most significant section of this audit report is the opinion section, which I'm happy to report we issued a clean or an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance we can provide. And it also means that the financial statements, based on our testing, appear to be complete, accurately, and fairly presented. For the single audit, which is the audit of federal funding, we assessed how SACOG managed federal funds during the year and tested the compliance requirements that are attached to those funds. Our resulting audit report over the federal programs is included in C7 near the back. And once again, for the compliance audit, we issued a clean audit report, which indicates that SACOG met all applicable federal requirements, as well as maintains strong internal controls over federal program spending. And then also importantly, we had no findings reported in either the financial statement or the single audit. A finding is essentially an instance of non-compliance, mismanagement, or maybe a weakness in internal control. We would be reporting those if we came across those as part of our testing. So at this point, I can take any questions. Otherwise, I'd like to thank Loretta for all her help through this audit process and her team's responsiveness, which really contributed to our success.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Loretta, do you have any more to your presentation? Is that okay? With that, I'll go back out to the board. Are there any questions for anyone? No? Oh, yes, Director West.
I just had one question. So always love getting a bill of good health, or in this case, no findings. On page 4, at the bottom of page 4 and top of page 5, I just had more of a clarifying question, just for my understanding. So another audit team audited another portion of it. Is that normal? And how does that work? Do we hear from that other auditor, or you are kind of saying, we checked over their work, it's all good?
Yeah, so we, in our audit opinion, we actually, for those specific funds that are audited by that separate auditor, we refer to their audit report in our audit opinion. So we're basically not taking responsibility for those funds because we're referring to the other auditor. I don't know, Loretta, if you want to speak to kind of why that's that way, or?
Yeah, I guess historically, the transit funds require a compliant audits also too. And because of the magnitudes of the audits, because it's involved all the climates within the region. So there is a lot of work that has to be done for each of the jurisdiction or transit agency that receiving the LTF funds. So just with the timing also, it always historically has been split up in between transit audit, which is a separate, and then also the financial audit of SACOG. And obviously, because this SACOG is administering these funds, so that's why it has to be incorporated as part of the financial statement of SACOG.
Got it. And so those separate audits happen at the local level, or?
So there, Yes, and so the LTF fund, which has happened at the, for the 4 counties, and then also all the claimants that receive LTF fund, like each of the member jurisdictions, so they have to go out and do audit on those individually. And then SACOG also administering the STA fund and also the state goodwill repair fund, which is a fund that passed through the transit agency also. SACOG maintain the records of those, so they will be also auditing those there.
And do those separate audits ever come up to us? Or when you say, yes, it's good, even though you're also saying you're not taking responsibility for it, but we did check over it, that is us saying we're good with it?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess we historically have not had the independent auditor that audit the transit fund come and present it to the board, but that definitely can be something that we can
I'm
have
not
that
suggesting
happen.
more work. I just wanted to say, what am I saying yes to?
Yeah, so obviously when they issue the audited report, we review SACOG, and then obviously Bailey as our financial auditor review those audited report, make sure that they are in good order, and then if there's any issues and stuff like that, obviously we will follow up, and then obviously they would do the same thing to make sure that they are comfortable with the information presented in those audit report before incorporated into SACOG financial report.
And
Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Chair, I could just also direct you to attachment D includes an independent letter from those Richardson auditors. So it's similar to what you heard from Carly today. They just provided it in writing this time. So they are standing behind their audit findings for those parts of the item.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, Lynette, is there any public comment?
Yes, there is public comment on this
There
item.
is. I remember now, sorry. Jeffrey Tardigia, good morning again.
Sorry, guys, but my question is, what are the open consulting contracts and what are the closed contracts for consulting? I go back to a previous report that's suggesting that your consulting are going to be going down in the future. So curious, is in this report, how are consulting contracts handled, being closed or open? And I don't know where to look in the report to see that.
Eric, is there somewhere we can refer, Jeffrey?
I could just state that we do provide quarterly reports on contracts. They go to our Policy and Innovation Committee, and then they come as a receive and file to the board. This is a review of the annual financials, so it takes a different lens of things than an annual budget and the annual report on contracts. So we do make that information public, both of anticipated contracts, awarded contracts. So that information is all public, and you'll see that start to come through, I believe, in February, and then quarterly thereafter.
Okay, thank you. So Mr. Tardigia, keep a lookout for our committee, Policy and Innovation Committee agenda items in February. Okay. Thank you. All right, are there any other comments from the public, Annette?
There's no other public comment.
Okay, thank you. Coming back up, entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Director Veerkamp moves item
Okay.
for approval.
All right, Director Veerkamp moves for approval. Oh my goodness, look at these two. Director Clarici,
The
I
mule
remember
team-
these guys.
The mule team is back.
The old team, right.
For those
Director
of you-
Clarici second.
James can.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. That'll do it for our action items. We're gonna move ahead into our information items next. And I alluded to this earlier, which is our 2025 look ahead. Casey Liaison will go ahead and brief us on our agenda for 2025.
Great. Thank you, Chair Soon. Good morning to all the members of the board. Gonna get this closer to me. All right. I'm Casey Lazan. I'm Deputy Executive Director for SACOG's programs. We do produce an annual work plan here at SACOG. It is a subset of the overall work program for SACOG. It is really highlighting the programs, the initiatives that are going to be taking up a lot of your time over the course of the calendar year. They tend to be also programs that will be setting forth work that's going to be ongoing for years ahead. So what we like to do at the beginning of the year is to give you a look ahead at that. And what I'm going to be highlighting is what's ahead on agendas that are going to be coming to you here at SACOG, what SACOG and local partners will be working together on, and then when SACOG may be visiting your community. Either you're going to be out there as the SACOG board, or there may be meetings where we'll be presenting on SACOG information. And then, of course, there's a lot of activities we have happening for you offsite and out of this boardroom. So I want to first ground us, and this is particularly a refresher for all of our returning board members, as well as an intro for all of our new board members. SACOG adopted a strategic plan back in 2022. It sets forth a vision for a vibrant and thriving Sacramento region for all. To get towards that vision, we have a mission to convene and connect the region to advance an equitable, sustainable, and prosperous future. So those words really mean the triple bottom line of the importance of equity, economy, and environment. So those are the goals that SACOG's work program is pointed towards. So the annual work program, as I said, has a lot of programs in it. We have in our strategic plan, which I believe you have a copy of, especially if you're a new board member, we have 4 priorities. I'm going to kick off the year by saying the blueprint update covers all 4 of those priorities. In fact, those 4 priorities came out of the prior plan. So the blueprint is the name that we give to SACOG's Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Communities Strategy. It's something that is updated every 4 years. This one was a very big plan for a variety of reasons. So it's actually being adopted after 5 years. So in this year, 2025 is going to be a milestone year. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you're all going to be working on, starting early on with developing the policies for that. SACOG will be doing a tour to all of your councils and boards to talk about this plan. You'll be releasing a public review draft. There'll be a big public comment period on that. You're going to adopt it. And you're also going to be starting to work on a 5-year implementation plan for that this year. So a lot of work ahead. So I'm going to break down though now into the 4 different priorities of our strategic plan and give you organizing the work ahead according to that. So under our first priority of building vibrant and inclusive places, one of our really big, significant programs is Green Means Go. That is the program to accelerate infill development in communities in green zones. So this year, the hands together mean teamwork. There's a lot of work happening within communities across the region to build the infrastructure in locally designated green zones. So that's the sewer, the water, the drainage upgrades that are really going to be there to support infill development. There's also a lot of planning happening, all based on grants that have come into this region to advance the vision of Green Means Go. And then we'll be looking to this board to help to continue to advocate for sustainable sources of funding for the program, because those grants are one-time funding at this point. The other thing happening under priority 1 is implementation of the Engage, Empower, Implement grant program. So at the very end of last year, this board awarded for the very first time grants to communities across the 6 counties to do community-led planning. So this is the year where we're going to start to see that start to happen. And we want to make sure that the board is apprised of that as it goes, because it is the first time we are launching this program. Under our second priority, foster the next generation of mobility solutions. I think the thing that's going to take up a lot of time is the Mobility Zones program. So this is a planning effort that received a big federal RAISE grant, and 2024 we really took off with that. What's happening this year is that community partners and our local government staff are going to be working together to develop mobility zones across the region. These are going to be coming forward to your board to adopt. Those mobility zones are identifying places where there are mobility gaps. And so once those zones are identified, those communities with their government partners are going to be identifying solutions that ultimately are to be funded and built. Moving to priority 3, modernizing the way we pay for transportation infrastructure. Again, something taking up a lot of time here is all of our efforts at SACOG, working with regional partners to build a regional express lane network. I think the big thing front and center is construction of the toll lanes on YOLO I-80, which was a huge effort last year to get that funding secured. And so now we're looking at that getting built. Also, SACOG is going to be continuing to help with setting up the Regional Toll Authority CARTA. So you'll see a lot of that, both for those of you who are appointed to CARTA for SACOG, and then also SACOG will be involved in that. And then on our fourth priority is to build and maintain a safe, equitable, and resilient transportation system. So what is ahead this year, what we want to highlight? your regional funding program. Last year was the conclusion of a revamp of all of that. And so right out the gate, you'll have your first 4-county round for the state portion of that program. So the State Transportation Improvement Program, you're going to be seeing a call for projects for that. And you'll actually be implementing the revamped program that you developed last year. And then over the course of this year, the board's also going to be setting up the funding targets for the federal 6-county program so that you can do a call for projects towards the end of 2025. And then lastly, there is an active transportation funding round that is happening. And so you'll be awarding those funds. So a lot happening on the funding front. Next. Okay. So that rounds out some highlights that for each of the priorities of the strategic plan for SACOG. What I want to do now is call out a few initiatives that really are cutting across all of those. So one of those, the Race Equity Inclusion Initiative at SACOG, this is going to be the 4th year that it's going, actually the 5th year that we're going on with this. This year, next month, you're going to see a refresher presentation for returning board members, and that presentation is a primer for all of those who are new to SACOG to get you oriented with that. We'll be doing a community tour. So when you're out at one of your offsites, there'll be a tour for that local community so that you really get to know its history and its current challenges and proposed solutions. The REI working group is going to be guiding us on a number of things on SACOG's work plan related to equity. And then, as Chair Soon had said, there's going to be an opportunity for all of you to participate in an inclusive leadership training, and you will find out more about that. A lot there. And then a lot, again, happening in legislation. Director Soon, or Chair Soon, sorry, had already mentioned the work on that top bullet really related to SB 375, really trying to update the state policies that relate to our role in greenhouse gas reduction to try to make it really work for us moving forward into the future. Again, identifying sustainable funding for Green Means Go, which is inextricably linked with those greenhouse gas reduction goals. And then also you'll be preparing for federal transportation funding reauthorization that's coming. And then what I want to end it with is you're not just doing the work in the boardroom, you are getting out into this really amazing and diverse region. So there will be 3 offsite board meetings this year. You have a calendar. If you don't have it, you will have it, of where those are in Placer, Sacramento, and Yuba counties. As I mentioned, the community tour. You're also going to have a board retreat. So you're going to be spending a lot of time together. And we will also have, before Cap to Cap this spring, a DC suburbs tour. SACOG puts that on about every other year. So this is the year for it. So please look for more information on that. On behalf of the SACOG staff, we are really excited for this year. We're really excited to be working with you on all of this. And that's 2025 in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Casey.
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask, just
Yeah.
really quick, there was a lot of information there. Thank you so very much. But just really quickly, where are our offsite meetings again? You said Placer, Yuba?
Yeah, so Placer County, in fact, Vice Chair Gallardo will be thrilled to welcome you to Rockland in March. So the March board meeting, we're going to Rockland. We are going to unincorporated Sacramento County. I'm looking at you, Director Desmond, in June. And we're going to round out in Yuba County this fall, TBD. So stay tuned for that. And then we'll do the other 3 counties next year, as we've done the last 2 years. Again, for many of you new board members, this is an idea we had 2 years ago. We thought, let's try this, right? We're a regional board, you're regional communities. Let's get out and learn. And we've heard such positive things from all of you about what you've learned and the before and after the board meetings and those offsites. So we're really looking forward to this year ahead. And I believe, Vice Chair Gallardo, you'll be ziplining into the March board meeting through
Did
Quarry
you say
Park.
I will? We will be. I think it's be a great idea. The bar is set so high after the last video that we had presentation. So I thought it only would make sense if we ended right at the Quarry Park Adventure Park and everyone had to zip line out to get back to your car. So.
Oh, looking forward to that. That's great. Well, and everything that Casey outlined, I think all these great things that she put forward, all the work, exciting work is the reason why I think everybody loves being on this board. So really excited. And I failed to mention the ARIA Working Group Committee will be announced in February. We don't have those set yet. So yes, Director Haldeshot.
Two things. One, love to get the PowerPoint, right? Didn't see it. Two, will we be then also, as in years past, doing that sort of board meeting gathering, I don't want to zip line, man. All right. I might end up in
Stay-
Roseville. I don't know.
Stay tuned, Director Howdeshell. Yeah, that is the idea. We as a staff plan one tour each year around a board meeting, and we really try to connect that to a lot of our equity work. And then on the other sites, we absolutely offer that up to the other jurisdictions, and many of you have taken up that mantle. So stay tuned, stay tuned.
Yeah.
I don't want to overpromise, but there will be lots of activities, and there'll be some good food in restaurants.
Director Desmond.
No, I was just gonna say, there won't be peaches or zip lines in Arden Arcade, but we will all be donning security vests and filling potholes.
Boy, how exciting. So exciting.
So exciting. Other duties as a son.
Did I say I was trying to move you out to the? restroom?
Mr. Chair,
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
if I may,
Yeah.
in light of those recent comments that were just made, I assume that I'm to divine from this schematic where we stand in our favor with the chair. I can't speak for Ms. Teeter or Ms. Boulahan or on down the line, but I know I'm on your holiday card distribution list, so I assume you've kept in contact with Director Veerkamp. So I'd just like to point out, since he raised the issue earlier, that my colleague, Director Desmond, is actually sitting in the unassigned Sacramento County seat. And his rightful seat is down here, basically just this side of the public comment podium.
Shots fired.
Thank you for pointing that out. Director. We don't need that.
Chair soon. Hi.
Yes, Lynette, go ahead.
So this assignment was actually mea culpa. It's me that made the assignments. And you're all my favorites, as you all know. So if I could string you all up at the front, I certainly would, but we did have to. So the way that I organized the seating chart was we have a number of new board members, and so I was hoping that all of our friendly, very helpful returning members could lend a hand to our new members. So I've tried to be a little bit strategic where our new members were placed. And Director Desmond, you will have a seat here, but since. You're very
Okay, I
important
gotta
to us.
control. Look,
Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
Listen, we're going off topic, but I, because it's been brought up so many different times, I'll say one final thing on this. If you notice, anyone who served on this board, you'll notice when you come into this meeting, you get to know your neighbors. That's the first thing you do. Although we will provide all these venues for you to get to know each other, the first thing you do is talk to your seatmates next door. So I really appreciate what Lynette did in trying to expose us to different new members and getting to know each other. So I support you 110%. We're joking about it, but we're all grown-ups and we will gladly accept wherever you seat us, except for Director Desmond. We will send him farther. No, I'm just kidding. Okay,
Chair
moving on.
Chair Soon, I
Yeah.
do want to disclose something, though. We did have an office betting pool on whether we'd have a comment on the seating assignment.
Somebody's won 3 times.
I'm
5
just
times
saying I'm
over.
buying lunch.
All right. Moving on, we have public transit in the region. Director Corliss, this one is yours.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Soon. Again, really as a way to kick off the year. So you just heard from Casey talking through the entire 2025 work plan. And now I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on public transit for a number of reasons. And by the way, Christina Spence is our transportation director. If you're new, she would normally giving this presentation. She is at Leadership Sacramento today, and I believe she may be graduate or making a presentation. Anyway, it was an important thing. So you got the second string guy in here. Okay, there's a number of reasons we want to do this, and we should probably be doing this at the start of every year. But we want to talk a little bit today and this morning about the importance of public transit across all 6 counties in this entire region. So I guess, am I doing this slide? All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So here's an overview of just what I'm gonna walk through this morning, and I want to try to get through this, and then please ask questions. I think we may have some, we've invited our transit operator partners to be here this morning as well to make some comments. So, okay. Who provides public transit in the region? What's the role of all of you as SACOG board members who also serve on transit agency boards? And there's a lot of you. Why is transit important? I will tell you, as a transplant to this region, or California, one of the first things I often hear is, hey, everybody drives their car, nobody rides transit. Well, actually, transit serves a really important role in this region. Why is it important for regional state goals? We do have challenges. We want to be upfront and honest about those challenges, but we've also got tremendous opportunities. It is not a one-size-fits-all approach. We want to talk a little bit about some of the key transit projects, and I know from my briefing earlier, we're gonna list some transit projects and capital investments, and we probably don't have them all, so forgive us if we don't have. We try to get everybody's, and then finally SACOG's role in transit. Okay. This is a super fast breeze through. This is like the buffet table. All right, we have different types of transit in this region, right? So we might often think about a bus that runs on a schedule, comes every 15, 30, 60 minutes. But there's different kinds of services, which is really important to understand. And actually, our region has been experimenting with many of these. So obviously, we have local bus for local trips and local circulation. We've had express bus, and many of you know these express bus services. And actually, even if the ridership is small, the value of those express bus services is strong. We have light rail within Sacramento County, run by Sacramento Regional Transit, of course. Hopefully with a pending extension across the river into West Sacramento, so it will be multi-county. Microtransit is a sort of a point-to-point on-demand. Somebody once said if a bus and an Uber got married and had a kid, you'd have microtransit. It's kind of just trying to keep it interesting. ADA services, really critical in terms of complementary services. Every transit operator required to do that. And finally, on-demand and ride-hailing. And Director Dowden-Cavillo, I know your jurisdiction, among others, right, are experimenting with, can we do some ride-hailing on-demand point-to-point and kind of have it actually work as a service? Okay, we're gonna keep on going here. And by the way, my apologies, we did not get this to you in advance. We will get it to you, but we did want to give a lot of our transit operators a chance just to give us some feedback on this. So here are all the providers in the region. You actually have 10. Sacramento Regional Transit provides the bulk of all those trips, right? The bulk of that ridership, but all these other operators operate in the region and they operate some important services. So you've got 10 of those transit providers in the region. Many of you, as I mentioned, sit on transit agency boards. In fact, this is the latest count, so I know we're still getting appointments, so we don't have everybody yet completely cross-referenced here, but there are at least 14 of you that also wear a transit hat. And what we're going to be asking of you is that you keep transit top of mind when you're here around this table. And I would point out, I think we've had some board members that have effectively done that over time because as I'm going to close, you're going to have a lot of transit topics in front of you this year. But it's a pretty robust representation from all of those operators that I just mentioned. We can certainly come back to that, but that's an important piece of this. You do have to wear a transit hat as you sit on the SACOG board and think about this, and think about the role of transit in your community, and think about the importance of it through transportation funding and everything else. Okay, this is a report that was done in the last few years in the Washington, D.C. metro region. This is actually a coalition of groups that exist, business organizations in Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and Richmond, Virginia, that are their own mega region. So business groups have come together and said, passenger rail and public transportation is critical to the economic livelihood of our region. So when Casey mentioned triple bottom line, we think equity, economy, environment. And I'm going to make the case to you this morning that from an equity perspective and from an economic prosperity perspective, an important but right-sized role for transit is critical to the economic health of this region. This is what business groups in these mega regions have noticed and have stood up for. Some of you may have gone to Indianapolis with the Metro Chamber Study Mission a few years ago and heard the Indy Chamber talk about why they led the charge to run a tax measure for transit and bus rapid transit, because they can't recruit the talent without the transportation options. So But as I said, there's challenges, right? So we all know that ridership, like COVID messed up so many things, including transit ridership. So we fell off a cliff with transit ridership right around COVID, and it has been steadily coming back. In fact, I believe the bus ridership, both with SAC-RT and around the region, is almost, if not above pre-pandemic levels. But the financials and the funding is struggling, which points to my next bullet point here, which is dedicated funding and sales tax measures. I know from a Placer County perspective, this may feel too soon because you tried and you got to 63%. And I'm not going to get into yes, a lot of people did their job, but this issue is important, right? So money is going to be hard to come by. We need to think about new revenue sources, but we also need to understand the world in which we live and the financial realities. While there are signs of improvement, land use needs to be more supportive of transit ridership, and it is a huge opportunity. That is why we talk about Green Means Go. That is why we talk about old struggling commercial corridors and strip malls, right? And the potential to convert those into housing, in part because it's good economic development, in part because we have a housing crisis, in part because if we can get people living near transit, they will ride it. And that's built-in ridership from the get-go. Costs are going up. This is nothing new to any of you, right? It's true in the transit industry. Is it true for other industries in construction? And then finally, we've got some state revenue challenges coming on the horizon, and that is going to affect and impact transit as much as it will highways and roads, everything else. However, there's good news and there's opportunities which we need to be very clear-eyed about and really take seriously. So here are a couple of opportunities. We are a region that could, I believe, make buses work much more effectively. Faster, more reliable, getting people where they need to go. We can do that for a number of ways through a high-capacity bus network that we've worked on with SAC-RT and YOLO TD and other operators. Bus rapid transit is the idea that we actually dedicate lanes on surface streets to buses. This actually, interestingly, came out of a city in Brazil named Curitiba. They wanted to build a subway, they didn't have enough money, and the mayor said, we can't afford a subway, give me a bus that works like a subway. And that's basically where bus rapid transit came from. Dedicated lanes, dedicated prepayment, station platforms. I was just in Mexico City over the break, and it is incredible, the bus rapid transit that works very effectively and runs faster than the traffic. I mentioned microtransit. Microtransit is something that many of your communities are trying, right? Point to point, trying to get people from point A to point B. I will be honest with you, it is more expensive on a per passenger basis. However, you get what you pay for. And it is a service that can allow people to actually get to the doctor, get to the grocery store, et cetera. This board has heard quite a bit about mobility hubs, which we are working on in the region, along with SAC-RT and YOLO TD and SMUD and the Air District. And finally, I mentioned Green Means Go. So here's a schematic about what bus rapid transit is. You're going to be hearing a little bit about this coming year because there's definitely a transportation theme that is coming this year for the board through the funding round, through our advocacy in Washington and Sacramento. So we do have BRT in the United States. There's some really great systems out there. If we can do the cap-to-cap trip before cap-to-cap in the DC suburbs, we'll get you on bus rapid transit. If you were in Salt Lake City on the trip that the board took, and went down to Provo, if you remember, we got off the commuter rail, got right on the BRT, and had a dedicated lane and right down to downtown Provo. But here's the other way to think about this, right? So we got surface streets, but we've also got something else that Casey mentioned CARTA is working on, which is dedicated lanes, express lanes. So if those express lanes can work well and we can decongest the express lanes, as you see here with Interstate 395 in the DC suburbs, we can run reliable transit service. It's basically our high-speed broadband for the freeway network. And can we run those buses down that freeway network so they're reliable and they're on time and you get to your job and you get home when you need to be there? Huge opportunity. I mentioned land use, and of course, just focusing on light rail here with the SAC-RT existing network. Huge opportunities that exist around all of those. Around BRT for sure, but certainly around light rail stations. So this is from a report we worked on with SAC-RT a few years ago, a TOD action plan. So if your communities are in Sac County and you have light rail, If you've got mobility hubs in your counties, if you've got a transit hub that you're working on, the land use component of this is absolutely critical. So again, just a couple of other examples of a lot of the initiatives that this board has been involved in, but in partnership with other agencies. Many of you may remember the board meeting we had with the Air District and SMUD and SAC-RT a couple of years ago, where we came together and discussed things like this zero carbon transportation initiative. Okay, here's my long list that we'll probably not have projects on that you all care about. But the point is, it's a long list. So we've got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of investments to make for things like the light rail vehicle changes. If you've seen the new light rail cars for SAC-RT, what a dramatic improvement. You don't have to actually suffer under a heat wave in the middle of summer and have the light rail vehicle break down, right? We have modern vehicles that will attract people, and we've got greater frequency now happening in places like out to Folsom. We do have a BRT project, at least one, and we're going to be working on that a lot. That's a regional priority project. It's Stockton Boulevard Bus Rapid Transit with SAC-RT, the city, the county, and STA. I'm not going to go down and name them all, but you get the point, right? We've got commuter bus, express bus, mobility hubs, and we have a massive undertaking to transition all of our fleets to zero emission. It's a big deal. Roles and responsibilities, I'm just going to touch on this. My big takeaway here is, and you're going to hear this a lot if you're a new board member, we're a team. We're a team across all 6 counties, across all transit operators, and the only way we win, I think you heard this from your 2 state senators this morning, we win as a team. So SACOG has a formal role. SAC-RT has a very formal role as a designated recipient. Yuba Sutter is the designated recipient up in Yuba Sutter in the urbanized area. But all of our operators are critical. We do have to update an MOU this year that governs how federal transit funds come to the region and are allocated. We have to do this together. And this is one of many things in front of us. So here's the focus for the year. I mentioned that MOU, which is now 10 years old, needs to be updated. We have to keep coordinating our transit priorities on competitive grant funding. I'm not going to shock you by saying this. This is going to be a very difficult climate to go and win competitive grant funding in, and we have to be together on this. Got to go to cap, but you can't just do that once a year and expect that we're going to win. We have SB 125. Returning board members may remember those transit funds that have come through state law, that come through SACOG and have to be awarded the second or third tranche this upcoming calendar year. Casey mentioned the blueprint plan. Casey also mentioned the state STIP funding round in the 4 counties that's coming. The board has worked very hard to revise that process for the 4 counties. And so that's coming up soon, very soon. Advocacy for regional priority projects. I mentioned cap to cap. APTA is the American Public Transit Association. They meet in a big national conference every March in DC. And then I think we've said competitive grant funding twice because we just want to put the finer point on how important that is. Okay, I know that was a lot. Believe it or not, we actually cut slides out of that presentation. We will make them available. I appreciate the operators that are here this morning that have come, if they're making public comment or not. Again, you all play a really important role as board members who sit on transit agency boards. You will actually be taking a formal action, as we do beginning every year, to designate all of you who sit on transit agency boards, and partly to meet federal requirements. But more than that, the regulation, the box checking, I'd say you're a team. All of you who sit on transit agency boards are a team, regardless of the community you come from. And we probably need to think and act like a team, given the year ahead and the challenges ahead. So with that, that's my report.
Thank you, James. And just before I take questions, I think I heard you say you're going to get this presentation.
Yes.
Everybody? Okay, appreciate it. Any questions for James? All right, a lot going on.
There is none.
We've got some public comment on this item, so I'm going to go ahead and start with Wandamu Mengishu. Good morning.
Good morning, board members. My name is Wandamu Mengishu, Director of Grants, SAC-RT. Thank you, board members. Thank you, James and SAC-RT staff for bringing transit issue to the board. And we look SAC-RT will be looking forward to working with you. And we're really happy to hear about transit coming to this forum. And we really appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
I can repeat myself. So Good morning, board members. My name is Wendy Mungstu, Director of Grants, SACRT. I would like to thank the board, SACRT, James and his staff for bringing this issue to the board. SACRT will be looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Likewise, thank you. Next up is Anthony Adams.
Good morning, Anthony Adams, Director of Planning for Sacramento Regional Transit. Thank you again to SACOG for bringing transit to the table for SACOG. Just want to highlight the impact that transit has here in the region. I know if we're sitting in our cars the whole time, it's kind of hard to understand how many people are taking transit in the region. SACRT is on track to provide 20 million rides in this next year, 20 million rides. I want to highlight, if those rides weren't on transit, they would be on the roads. So if you guys are against congestion, you should be for transit. Also, of those rides, about 50% of our riders do not have access to a personal vehicle. So we view our service as a lifeline service. This is a way for people to get to their jobs, to their services, and live a dignified life. Also, just want to highlight a program that we run. It's one of the largest and most successful in the entire nation, Ride Free RT. Anyone that has kids here has probably used this service. Any child that's under 18 can get on our buses for free, not only to go to school, but go to after school as well. It's now 25% of our ridership. Not only are these riders today, but it's growing the ridership in the future. So just wanted to highlight a few things that we're doing here at SACRT and how impactful transit is to the SACOG region. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, Autumn Bernstein.
All right, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Autumn Bernstein. I'm the Executive Director of the YOLO Transportation District. I want to echo my colleagues at SACRT and thanking the staff for bringing this forward. And I agree, you should talk about transit every year. As was noted in the presentation, we're dealing with a lot of challenges, structural challenges related to changing commute patterns, funding, costs going up, all of the things. But collaboration is key if we're going to solve these problems. We can't do it in isolation. We have to work together. Like the rest of us, transit riders don't live their lives in a single jurisdiction, right? In Yolo County, we've got UC Davis. It's an upward mobility engine, consistently ranked nationally as one of the top institutions for helping students from low-income families and diverse backgrounds rise out of poverty through economic opportunity, through education, and that leads to economic opportunity. But many UC Davis students and the staff, there's great jobs at UC Davis that don't require a college degree, but to get to those jobs, you have to be able to access the university. It's not like when I was an undergraduate at UC Davis and I paid $300 a month for, an apartment in Davis. A lot of students can't afford to live in Davis. They are lining up at the bus stops in Woodland, in West Sacramento, and in Sacramento to get to those education opportunities and to get to those jobs. With your support, we're working on major investments to fix the causeway right now. Between us and SACRT, we run about 86 buses a day across the causeway. The Capitol Corridor runs 23 trains on the same corridor. Just imagine if we didn't have that service. Just imagine how much worse things would be on the causeway. So we need to address these structural challenges. It's coming for all of us transit operators, not just here in the Sacramento region, but nationally. And we've got to continue to provide that service for our communities and for our economy, for everyone that's counting on it. So thank you. We look forward to working with you in the year ahead on all of these difficult conversations, and we'll get there together. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Autumn. Next up, Tiffany Scott.
Good morning, members of the Board of Directors. I'm Tiffany Scott. I'm the President and CEO of Paratransit Inc. We are one of the slightly different transit operators here in the region. We also do mobility management across the entire 6-county region, working to get as many people as possible onto everyone's systems through education, which is a huge piece and component of this. We also are very excited to be able to work with the SACOG board this year as we release the one-stop, one-click shop for transportation in the region. We have created a one website, one phone number location funded by SACOG where you can come and say, I want to go from point A to point B. Give me all your options. Incorporated into that will be the ability to teach you how to do that, how to buy a Connect card, how to travel train, how to move to make that trip that you've never taken before when you want to go to a festival, an event, and leave your car behind, or when you want to travel to the airport. So we look forward to what that looks like as we talk about things like Next Gen. I also serve proudly as the vice chair of the Transit Coordinating Committee and have been the chair in the past. And so we look forward to the work this board's going to do. That group includes members of each one of the operators. And we too try and sit down regionally and talk about how do we look at these issues? Where is there commonality between us for things like procurement and funding and service coordination? And so anything we can do as that committee to be able to help forward the work you're doing. We are here to serve and be able to be that technical expertise, boots on the ground for this board. We've done that in the past, and with the initiatives ahead, we look forward to being able to really engage and provide that in the driver's seat, day-to-day expertise for you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last speaker slip I had. Any other comments from the board? Okay, I see.
James, I'm curious about the microtransit portion of this. I've been hearing that for a little while through Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. Questions. How widespread is that? Is it actually being used? And what's the cost for the rider?
Okay, those are great questions. And probably what we should do is, if the board's interested, is follow up and
Okay.
give you a bit of a microtransit briefing.
Okay.
It is being, I'm looking at Director Early, West Sacramento experimented quite a while ago with a provider called VIA. YOLO Transportation District, Autumn Bernstein, YTD has a thing called the Beeline. I know Placer County is looking at this. I think TART up in the basin, I think in North Lake Tahoe. So I think there's in the microtransit is such a great both challenge and opportunity, because the opportunity is giving people sort of a premium service and getting them from point A to point B, where it's really difficult with fixed route, honestly, like a fixed route schedule. Part of the challenge, I think, is in the cost, right? And so we have to sort of, we're willing to pay X amount, which I don't have for you right now, right? To get people from, home to healthcare or wherever it may be. So it's not for everywhere. It's not the solution that will solve all our problems, but I think it is something, and I know Yuba Sutter is also experimenting with this. So we're in a pilot and experimentation phase on microtransit.
Could I add to that, just in regards to what we have experienced on YTD and the Beeline? And I'm looking at Director Lauren, when she comes back, she will probably speak to this. I would argue that it's not only a premium service, but sometimes it is the service where we cannot actually have a bus go there. And so I look to Winters because, again, it is it's more in a very, very rural part. We would love to have our public transportation going there, but that's not necessarily cost effective either when you look at in regards to just the span of and scope of what's there. And so we have had our Beeline. We will likely expand our Beeline even more to Winters this year, because public transportation in regards to our YOLO bus isn't necessarily an option.
Thank you.
I was just curious because I know that there's a couple individuals in Sheridan who there's no transit out there at all. And, they've been asking for a long time. And there's one lady in particular, and I know we can't do it just for one person, but one lady in particular who has no way to get around. And so she has to come to town to buy groceries and then sits on the side of the road waiting for a ride back to Sheridan from strangers. And I've dealt with her a lot when I was the liaison to the MAX out there. And so when I started hearing this micro transit thing, I was like, well, maybe that's a solution. So I'm interested to hear more about it when you get ready to do that. So thanks.
Director Aldershot.
Yeah, thanks very much. Some of these comments prompted some thoughts. Some of us also sit on the Capitol Corridor Joint Powers Authority, and those mobility centers are front and center. As I went down to BART on Monday, I got to see the new cars sitting there off to the side. That's terrific. In Placer County, we also piloted, and I think Board Member Jones might have chaired the PCTPA at the time. We piloted the Sierra College rides for students because while we might look from all appearances to be a affluent community, we certainly have, as you saw when you visited Roseville last year, we have some underserved communities that's vital to. So I think that was CCJPA's and yeah. So getting the educational opportunities and Commissioner Board Member Andreata, let's talk, because I think we do have more, more of those type opportunities, either through the Placer County, Transportation Planning Agency. And the last thing, a question, finally a question. Triggered by Board Member Andreatta's question. Is on-demand different than microtransit or the same?
Well, we could give you the Venn diagram as maybe the, so microtransit is typically on demand. Sometimes it has a deviated route structure, but it's typically on demand, but it's usually multiple passengers, right? So you're trying to, remember Super Shuttle back in that, you're trying to get efficiency through routes. On demand also could include ride hailing, right? It could include what Auburn is doing, which is just, you know, a single trip, right? Single person. On demand is basically, I want it now. On demand, so.
Yeah, thanks, because we piloted the Aero 2 years ago in Roseville.
Yeah.
Director Early West.
The only other thing so I'm really excited for this year in regards to our high focus at this level on transit. With our capital area region tolling authority, us really spending this year standing that up. I think that's going to be important when you think about across the region. And I know in our transportation committee, one of the things we really highlighted when even just talking about STIP is the importance of the regional partnership as well. You will have these county dollars going down, but it's important that we have those also our ability to work as a team and not only focus on our own districts, but really how we are all touched. And that's why it's so important. That's why this board is so important, that we be willing to sometimes not only think about our own municipalities where we're coming from, but how that impacts all of us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I too am glad to see this renewed focus on transit. So thank you, James, for bringing this up. I want to thank all our transit providers who came out here today to speak as well. And I see a hand. Director Veerkamp? No, Director Sander.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick comment so I don't steal from the next awesome presentation that's coming up here. I chaired RT over a decade ago, and it was a very interesting time. I'll still trying to recover from that. It was a challenging time. And I'll just throw something in the room that, you know, a lot of people may not be aware of in terms of how to think about this. And it's really about like efficiency of service and what is your mission. So the constant battle at RT in those days, and probably still today, is are we a lifeline service provider for people who have no option? Or are we trying to be a choice for people who do have options, right? Which are you going to be? Because they're not mutually exclusive, but the overlap in that Venn diagram might be pretty tight. So really, and it depends on how you deploy service. And here's an example. In those days, paratransit was operating separately. They were dealing with all of our federally mandated paratransit needs. But their cost per ride was $75 to $85 one way. You had to reserve days in advance. They could be plus or minus an hour late or early. Not a great service at enormous expense. And at the time, you could compare that to a ride hailing service in Sacramento where the average ride was costing, you know, $15 or $20. And 85% of the paratransit people were completely mobile. They did not need any special vehicle. So the question became, is this really a good use of resources to spend $150 moving someone in kind of a poor way in terms of schedule and service, you know, or should we find a way to partner with that ride hailing group and spend 30, you know?
Yeah.
Where are we most efficient? And so stealing from my next talk, transit all over the country is in this crisis, and this is not a cluster, a government cluster that reforms easily for a lot of reasons. So exploring that might be of great value to it. A big question, even in these times of enormous stress.
Yeah. At the same time, I'll just close out by saying a long time ago, we used to talk about, we don't want to be LA, right? Because of the traffic. We saw what happened in the South Bay when they didn't want to be part of the BART system, the Bay Area Rapid Transit System, right, in the early days. So here we are at this point, and I appreciate Director Sanders' point, very valid. But as a region, we have to figure it out because we are continuing to grow. And if we don't do some sort of investment in transit, doesn't, you know, all these different modes that James talked about, we will be following in the footsteps of those areas that we so do not like. So I'll leave it with that in terms of a vision. We got to get this done. And then I'm going to move on to the next item, which Director Sander teeing himself up. But I'm actually excited because what an honor to serve on the National League of Cities and be the president to represent this region at a national level. So I was looking forward to hearing your report. Director Sander.
My pleasure. Is it okay from here, or would you prefer
Go ahead, whatever is comfortable for you. Is that, do you need that?
it'll work either way.
Okay. Go ahead, yeah. 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 Exercise your legs, sir. Yeah. Can somebody get the kitty? Oh, he left me. Let me get the kitty stool and put it. Yeah.
All right, very good. Well, thank you for making time for my 1 hour presentation here this morning. It could easily be that. So I'm gonna try to give you some snippets and some insights from my year as president of the NLC. And needless to say, as the chair just suggested, it's a significant political opportunity, I guess, that I was given to become president of the NLC. It's not something obviously that happens to very many people, and it takes sort of a team to get it done. It is, other than getting elected the very first time to city council, this is probably the most difficult political thing I've ever done. But once you're there, you kind of realize this is a national level organization, right? We've got 19,000 cities, towns, and villages who rely on us for representation. We're one of the 5 biggest organizations in DC in terms of lobbying. Hundreds of employees. We run an insurance company. We have a real estate portfolio. We are expected to be present at all sorts of things. 2024 was my year as president. 2024 was a presidential election year. We had to be engaged with both presidential political organizations. We had to be present at both of the conventions. 2024 was also the year NLC was celebrating its 100th anniversary as an organization. So on top of all of that, we had to do all these special things like a bus tour around the country celebrating 100 years of the National League of Cities. So in doing all of that, and hosting a meeting here in Rancho Cordova for hundreds of leaders from around the country, in doing all of that, I did a ridiculous amount of travel, 75 flights or trips in one way or another, 68 nights in Hilton's just last year. I got points. Anybody need points? I got points. There is no shortage. There's some fun examples I'll give you of what it was like. I was in virtually all states except for West Virginia, Maine, and New Hampshire. I was also in Guam, Northern Marianas, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and some places around the world.
South Korea.
South Korea, I was in South Korea. Mike and I injured ourselves together there. That's a different story. Some fun examples. I was a speaker at Davos last year. You know that international gathering of glitterati in Switzerland? The speaker before me was Zelensky. How do you follow that?
Yeah.
The only joke I could make when I came up was I didn't bring any camo, to follow the leader of Ukraine. That was not the most stressful event, though. The most stressful for me was, ironically, giving a TED Talk. Because all of us can stand up here and do this part. This part is not hard. The hard part is when you've got 8 minutes and you better not waste a word and there's no in there, right? That was difficult. So there's a TED Talk out there if you want to find it. The most interesting moment I had as a year as president was I had 20 or 25 minutes backstage, one-on-one with President Biden. He was at our national meeting. I was supposed to introduce him. We had a pre-event photo thing. He said, "Hey, I want to keep talking to this guy." So he and I went off. We talked for 20 minutes. This was in March. I won't tell you all my impressions of him at that point, but later on, everybody saw at that debate something I had seen earlier. And the hard part for me was, what do you do with that once you've seen it, right? It was actually a very interesting and difficult thing to handle. The most ridiculous event of my year was probably, there was a meeting of Pan American cities in Puerto Rico. It was kind of loosely organized and crazy at a giant Hilton in San Juan. The organizer came in and said, Dr. Sander, you're not on until 9:30. So go over here to this reception room with all these other board members and other dignitaries. Go over there and we'll call you when we need you. So about 9:45, after I was supposed to be on, no one had come to get us. So I said, we got to go check this out. I'm not sure. So we went over to this huge room, delegates from all over Central and South America. Walk in there. As I opened the door to walk in, I hear myself being announced. Oh, and David Sander, President of the National League of Cities, is here to give his address. I don't even know where to sit. I don't know where the microphone is. Walked in there, figured it out based on the head table, did my remarks, and then the president of that organization sitting next to me, and I was all done. And this is one of those situations where you don't connect with your audience. Like something was not right. She afterwards said, "Oh, by the way, almost no one here speaks English." So bad staff work, bad ought to be, whatever. But there were challenges like that, going through this year. Probably the scariest thing, I won't go into too many details, is a run-in with a mountain lion in Teddy Roosevelt National Park. I'll fill in that later. I spent months on the road. Like my wife and I, once we were separated for probably about 7 weeks. I think we met at Notre Dame for a football game in like the middle of it. That's how long I was gone. So I missed many meetings here. I just want to apologize for that. Now, my point in much of this travel was to visit all these state league meetings. So every state, like California, we have our League of Cities meetings. I would typically be the speaker at those meetings. And often I'd be like the lunch speaker. They'd give me 40 minutes and then I'd have to go to a dinner with the board the night before or that night. And then I'd go to some sessions and just be able to network with leaders from literally all over the country. Maybe a little Midwestern heavy in terms of where I was at, but still networking with people from all over the country. It was an amazing opportunity to see sort of the challenges everybody's up against. I had 3 missions that I talked about. First of all, I described, as a scientist, I described what we do as city leaders as being the laboratory of democracy. Now, some Supreme Court justice said that was states. He was wrong. Cities and local government really are the laboratory of democracy. We're the level of government where it matters most to people in terms of quality of life and where we experiment constantly. We were just having a discussion about that in transit. How can we do this better? Can we test this? Can we test that? We are that level of laboratory in our democracy. So I talked about that and that concept and encouraged people, to pursue the 3 things that successful cities do. 1, they have a culture of service. We're all here. We all understand that. That's kind of a low-hanging fruit in terms of understanding what makes cities successful. But if you really have that tradition of service and not a tradition of self-interest or economic success for some or whatever it may be, that is a feature of a successful city. Second, partnerships. Extending partnerships much deeper than we're used to. Historically, they would have been normal. Now, they would be considered extreme or unusual levels of partnership. I talked a lot about that. And third, and perhaps most importantly, innovation. We have to have a willingness to think big, willingness to take a risk. That in and of itself is a challenging topic. And we have to have that drive, that passion to constantly improve what we do. So that was sort of what I was going around talking to city leaders all across the country about. I got some really interesting feedback after some of these speeches. I'll tell you a typical one. I'd be walking through a lobby after the speech and some guy would come up to me and says, Mr. Sander, I really have to apologize to you. Oh, why is that? Because I was really insulting you before you started talking. He said, I told my table mates, the last thing we need is some elite guy with a PhD from California coming here to tell us how to do things in Nebraska, right? And this is a big deal. If you have not experienced this, Californians, this is a big deal. We are not viewed that positively around the country.
No.
Yeah. It's just in the pronunciation of the word. They really give us the F.
Yeah.
California, right? Is exactly how it's done. Now, I grew up in Illinois, so I may have a little bias there. But the coastal bias issue, I think, is what really divides city leaders and frankly communities and frankly states. Because so much attention is placed on coast and coastal cities and coastal regions to the detriment of everybody in between. Because everybody in between is just in what? Flyover country, right? Doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. We don't know what's there. That is a huge detriment, something I heard about a lot. I had to diffuse that when I gave speeches. I actually would do it up front. I'd start making a joke similar to what I just did, saying, oh yeah, here I am, a PhD from California to tell you how to do your business. And I said, actually, what I am is a farm boy from Illinois. So that actually diffused a lot. And then speaking about those 3 things, we got to innovate, we have to have service, and we have to, establish partnerships, sort of broke down those barriers. But the barriers are clearly there. Here's another odd experience. I was in states where I would go and I would give them my 40-minute lunch speech or whatever it was. And the state league executive would say afterwards, oh, you know, I really need you to do me a favor. Don't tell the governor you were here. Well, why is that? Because if the governor had known you were here, he or she would really want to meet with you because you're like a visiting dignitary. Okay, I've been on cap-to-cap missions with this organization for over a decade, when we didn't even meet with one of our own US senators, right? This is a very unusual relationship some cities have with their federal representatives. And it's not just small states, there's a lot more engagement in many of these states. That is something I learned. The number one thing people got excited about that I talked about was the local infrastructure hub. How many of you know what that is? The local infrastructure hub that the NLC put together. Basically, it was an initiative after the last reauthorization when the number of federal programs went from 80, let's say, to 400. This initiative was to help small jurisdictions get in line and be able to apply for federal transportation funding. It took tens of millions of dollars in partnerships from money from NLC, money from donors put together. But in the process of executing that, it includes things like a boot camp to teach you how to apply, technical support to make sure your application is on target. This is for very small cities, medium-sized cities. And also support afterwards when you get the grant to manage it, because cities don't have the 10 or 50,000 to put the application together, nor do they have the ability to manage it necessarily. But this program helped hundreds of cities receive hundreds of millions of dollars of grants. And these are largely cities like below 15,000 in population. That was far and away the most popular thing I talked about. And I think one of the greatest successes of NLC last year. I heard some universal challenges in local government. States out to get us. States out to get us through regulation, taking our money, taking away our local control. Another point people often made, we have to find a better way to do what we do. We need to educate ourselves better. Third point I heard often was partisanship has no role in what we do locally. Like there was not hardly any partisan commentary in all those hundreds of city leaders that I talked to and regional leaders. But there was the same old theme of federal government. This is kind of fun. You need to pay attention to what we do. You need to get out of our way. You need to fund us and you need to leave us alone. Not necessarily hanging together there logically, but that's a pretty universal sort of approach. And ironically, when I was in Kansas, where the NLC was begun 100 years ago, and I went to see what the founding documents were and what they were talking about, it's the same issues I just mentioned. The exact same issues. 100 years ago is why they formed the NLC, as to why, and they're the same issues we work on now. The one observation I will throw into the mix is when I was in a state that was dominated by one political party, those difficulties for local government were heightened. Didn't matter whether that was a red state or a blue state. If it's one party rule, local government is under far more stress because they don't have anyone to appeal to if the guiding wisdom of that party is not with them on an issue. So not good balance and debate. All right, transportation takeaways. Most states function well below our standards of improvement for things. You know, I've always traveled a lot, just traveled a ton, and I'm always watching for transportation stuff. You usually don't see things built as nicely as we can build them, but on the flip side, they're usually maintained much better. So when I was in Missouri talking to their state league, one of their priorities was our transportation system is in terrible shape. I had just driven to the convention center from the airport, looking at the quality of the street and thinking, I've never been on a road this nice in California, right? And they're saying that is terrible. Their standards of maintenance are so much higher. They're dealing with like trash and debris and disorder so much better than what we typically see here in California. I think nationwide transit is not doing well. It's not really reforming itself well. People have concerns about it everywhere. Rather than reform, I think we're sort of in a position of retrenchment. I think that's how most people would describe what I've seen with regard to transit. We remain a world leader in so many ways, particularly related to our economic might. You see that all over the place. I certainly saw it in Korea and Switzerland and Germany this year. But those three countries also beat us resoundingly in infrastructure. I mean, in Switzerland, if a train is 3 minutes late, the director of Swiss Rail is like, we have a major problem. We can't have anything be 3 minutes late. That is their mark of like utter failure is a 3 minute late train. But also in Switzerland, when you roll up to the town of any size, you don't see a single family home. You see a 4-story apartment building at the edge. That's the edge building. So their density is off the scale. Not true for little Swiss villages up in the mountains of 100 people or so. Town of any size, also in Germany, Europe is that way to a great extent because they're trying to preserve farmland, so they grew densely. The exact opposite of us. They had density, we don't. So it's very difficult to compare mass transit. I saw some incredible challenges out there. There's a city in South Dakota where FEMA has ruled most of their land, or the neighboring city, most of their land as uninsurable floodplain. So this city has grown sort of on the bluff from 1,500 people to 5,000 people in 2 years. They think they're headed for 40,000. Think about doubling your size. I mean, in 20 years, they could be at 40,000 people because of a flood issue.
Director Stan, just to be respectful, but.
Yep.
How much longer do you have?
I could go, well, I'm almost done, actually.
Okay, sorry.
I saw oil sand production in the Dakotas.
Yeah.
There's so much national debate about that. There's environmental concern about that. What I saw was a ridiculous number of trucks, a ridiculous number of oil trains hauling oil out, and the places where there were pipelines, those did not exist. So it's a really interesting sort of big picture environmental question. Are we better off with all those trains and trucks as opposed to an electrically powered pipeline? I also saw a lot of successes in local governments and in regional partnerships, something I will continue to bring back to SACOG as it comes up. I'm going to share two last thoughts, leadership takeaways. One, partnership. I had a whole spiel I gave on partnership, trying to talk about, well, I use Rancho Cordova examples in the arts and how everything's flourished because we handed control over to artists in a way, and then just supported what they did. But this guy in, I think it was South Dakota, said, I'll tell you about partnership in my town. Fire hydrant had a leak by it, somewhere underground near this fire hydrant. So this is the mayor. So, you know, I got a backhoe. We went out there and we dug it up. And we looked, oh yeah, there's a leak. Well, who's got that size pipe? We need a segment of pipe because it had cracked along the pipe. Oh, well, this guy down here building an irrigation project. Let's see. Yeah, he's got the pipe. He's bringing the pipe over. Okay, well, now we need like something stronger than my backhoe. Oh, this guy's got that. How do we weld it in place? Oh, we'll call the local welder. He'll come over and weld it. There was no government employee involved in that at all. They did it, town of 3,500 people. That is like local engagement by residents, doing stuff they can and they care about because government's kind of letting them. We're not getting in the way. There's really something to think about how we do partnerships as cities and allow our residents to do what they actually can. And the last comment I'm going to leave you with is one note on service. I met this incredible guy named Lou Pagano, who has been in office since 1983 in St. Peters, Missouri. That's 43 years. He's been a mayor for most of that time. It's not a rich suburb of St. Louis. I grew up near there. He's been working on a decades-long vision to turn his suburban community around. And by the measures I've seen, he's pretty much succeeded. And his thesis is really simple. You just have to bring people together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sanders. I wish you would have a SACOG sticker to take all around these countries to take a picture.
Yeah. Oh, like flat stand?
Yes, yes.
Look at your desk. Yeah. Look at your.
Any questions, Director Sander, on that issue? Okay, seeing none. Again, thank you for representing us. I mean, national. So yeah, us, the state, everyone back there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Youth Leadership Academy recruitment for the 7th cohort. Speaking of laying the foundation for partnerships. Hi, Rosie Ramos.
Hi, good morning. My name is Rosie Ramos. I'm the project manager for the Youth Leadership Academy, so I'm excited to be here today to launch our 7th cohort, which is really exciting. For those of you that are new, the Youth Leadership Academy is SACOG's effort to bring in the youth perspective into the work that we do and give them an opportunity to learn about the work that we do as a regional partner, how we collaborate across so many different sectors, and hopefully encourage them to either, engage as a community residents, take on different roles as future planners, or potentially sit in these seats in the future. So this is a really cool, unique program that we run here. Like I mentioned, this is a 7th cohort. We have worked with over 250 students, or almost 250 students to date, and initiated with the intent of wanting to get folks to know what is a regional planning agency do, how do we work with our transit partners, how does the economic development play a key role in this, how do we think about our environment, how do we think about environmental justice. And so those are all topics that we discuss in the YLA program. we have also peer coordinator positions for those students that participated 1 year, want to come back to help us either think through different workshops. They can also moderate panels or just essentially take on a leadership role with the program. So that's a little bit of that background for that. And this year we're launching the recruitment now in January and it's going through March. We are looking for high school students to participate in the 7th cohort. The applications are open until March 7th. So we are really looking for your assistance in helping us spread the word at the local communities. We have 40 spots that are going to be open for 9th through 12th grade students. And we want to make sure that we do, especially want to highlight that we've had some challenges in the Sutter and Yuba County areas. So really looking for folks to share either community partner organizations that can help us recruit there, share with your principals, different, if there's youth groups, youth commissions, any assistance that you could provide in reaching out to those particular counties, that would be really helpful. In your packet, you have a toolkit, so you are able to copy and paste, send to all of your networks. If there's other materials that you need, we are happy to create them. Just let us know, reach out. There's a flyer there, so feel free to just share it across the masses. We do want to highlight that SMUD is a really important partner for this. They have been a sponsor and fiscal partner for a long time now, honestly, since the inception of it. So they are a returning partner that we are really appreciative of, and they will continue to support the program. We have some field trips planned out, one of them including their Power Academy, which is really great, and learning about the great work that they do. They are Sacramento County specific to an extent, but they have a lot of impact across the region regardless. And so they're very interested in continuing to help us increase this program's effectiveness. And so we're very thankful for that. The application is pretty straightforward. We are looking for students that are just interested in learning and want to engage. So we also want to highlight that we want to reach out particularly to Title I schools, low-income students, students that might not already have a grand resume of things that they've done. This is an opportunity for them to build up that resume and learn a little bit about our region. So take that toolkit, please spread it across your communities. Oh, and one other thing this year that is a little bit different is that we are also looking for community partners that we can pay to help us do some outreach, doing some pop-ups. So if you know any organizations in your local areas that could be interested in doing in-person pop-ups at community events or high schools, let us know. There's a form that they can fill out for interest. We do have paid partnerships available for that. So looking to partner in that capacity as well. With that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
All right, any questions for Rosie? Oh, yeah, Director Vega.
It's not an internship, it's an academy, but it's a hybrid system. We have 5 that will be virtual and then 4 field trips. I will add that the final event will be June 20th. It's a Friday. I would invite you to put that on your calendar. It will be graduation, and we also want to do a little mini conference to invite returning or alumni students to network and engage with the current class and whomever of you that would be willing to join us. So it's hybrid, wanting to reduce the ability or increase the ability for folks that live farther away to participate.
Thank you.
Director Maple.
Thank you, Chair. Sounds like an incredible program, and I'm sorry if I missed this when reading through the materials, but do we keep track of the participants after they complete the program? So are we kind of checking to see, do they obtain leadership roles? Do they do other things in other organizations?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we've been trying to ramp up how we engage with our alumni. We have done some surveys in the past. We've had a partnership with Sac State where we had an intern try to do some of that engagement. It was a little bit difficult for them to get plugged in. A lot of the times what has happened and what we're learning now is they used school emails that eventually get blocked out after they graduate. So really encouraging them to use contact information that will be able to stay. So that's a great point. We do know some students have come back, the peer coordinators come back. We know that we have students already graduated in the workspace. I believe Director Villegas, you've had a student that returned to that area. So it's more qualitative though. And so we are looking for ways to encourage them to use contact information that we can use to keep up with them in the future.
Wonderful. Yes. And just kind of want to plug, we always have internship opportunities in our offices. So I'm willing to help partner and spread the word. Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
Any other questions? All right, I'll just quickly say, this is a great program for those of you who are new to it. And The kids are so excited and they're learning about regional government, right? How many of us didn't know about regional government till we got on the council? And how many of us didn't get to know each other across the region till we came to something like this? These kids are learning about building relationships across the region. Think what that will do going, years going forward for this area. So encourage you to get the word out and get your students to apply. All right. Thank you so much, Rosie.
Thank you.
Next, we're gonna table the board policies for the next meeting. So I'm gonna go straight to chair and director reports. I'm gonna ask if any directors have any report outs. Region.
I have one quick thing.
Oh, yeah, Director.
Just on behalf of all the current and former residents of the state of Michigan, all the graduates and students of the University of Michigan and Michigan State University, I'd like to say that the university that happens to reside in Columbus, Ohio, is the least likable member of the Big Ten Conference, and go Irish.
All right.
That has been the debate. I've noticed that, but we're winning in the best of the worst.
Okay.
I apologize, Director Desmond left, but Bob Euchre passed away today, and thinking about the Euchre seats back there, I was gonna give him that designation that Director Desmond was in the Euchre seats, but I missed the opportunity to snack out.
Next time. Director Downing, Javier.
Yes, I just wanted to really encourage us is that when we visit DC, in our existing capacities or transportation or what have you, it's important that when we talk about transportation, that we know that there is a shift, obviously, in leadership. And so it's important that we really focus our efforts when we talk about transportation to talk about them with regards to economic vitality and economic development. One of the things we like to talk about is that green means go, where green is now the buck. Right. And so really focusing our efforts and focusing our advocacy on how transportation and viable transportation means viable economic development for our region. So just as a quick note.
Thank you for that plug. Yeah, we want to go back there and resonate with the current administration, right? But also, as you heard Senator Ashby talk about today, when we come in one voice, it helps them advocate for us. So we want to all help each other by having that, framing in our minds. She just did a turn on green means go, how we referred to it before and how we want to refer to it now. So we just want to get that out there in the beginning of the year and before we start all our advocacy trips. All right. With that,
Chairman, really one quick public service announcement. I will be the chair of the Capitol Court Joint Powers Authority. Love the seating assignment because here's a member, there's a member, there's a member. I think that's it. But if you have any comments or issues related to that, ask Kay.
very good. All right. That's it. If there's anything else, we go to the order.
Sorry, just real quick.
Real quick.
You got the blue pieces of paper in front of you. This is your chance, okay? So please fill that out and return them. I am not important. The woman to my left here is the person who you need to know. You need to respond to her emails and her texts. I'm not going to call out names today, but I could call some out. So please fill those out. Again, Chair Soon said, we have a great inclusive leadership training. If you have questions about what that is, talk to us, right? We're going to be offering that 3 or 4 times this year. We got the cap to cap pre-tour. We have a reception for the board and those board retreat dates. Please see if you can try to make those work. That will be during the day. We're going to be going down to the chair's jurisdiction in Elk Grove. It's been very hard we tried a couple of dates already in September, didn't work. If you can anyway make either of those dates work, please check them off and we'll be in Elk Grove in October.
Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll see you February 20th. Thank you. Have a great day.
How well was it?